Yep, yep. Let's start again. My name's Henry. I'm the warband leader of Black Cockerels. We are a Sigmarite warband in Ballarat. Um, I had done a little TED talk like this privately um, with a friend about helping them get into Warhammer and helping them figure out where they are and where they what sort of knowledge they need to know as just like a everyday person in the Warhammer Fantasy universe in this specific year. So, this is my little TED talk. I've prepared a bunch of few things for people to look at. There will be links thrown up in the chat as we're going along. For you watching after the live on the VODs, they'll be in the description or they'll be pinned top comment, sort of dealio. Yeah, so we've got quite a few things to go over. This stream I'm expecting to take approximately maybe 45 minutes to an hour. Just depends on how long I ramble. So, let me start again. Let's thank the people we followed in the past couple of hours. Champs, all ears. And then let's start with where we are currently in the year. I'm also joined by Grant, another Black Cockerel. I mentioned that before I realized I was muted. Whoops. I just moved that. Why did I touch it? I'm not going to touch that screen. I'll touch that screen anyway. Okay, so the current year in Swordcraft in our LARP is the current year in real life. So the year 2022. Not this is sort of an era where there is stuff going on, but it's stuff going on that is sort of veiled, really. So let me first link y'all to the timeline. Yeah. Here. So that's popped up in chat. So this is the one I use primarily. The other resources have recently gone down, and I have no access to them at all. Whoops. So we are in the year 2022. So the current things that are going on in the year in this era, the most recent main event. These are main events. So we're going to work backwards. So let's think about our basic bitch boy character. So our basic bitch boy character, and let me just pull up a sticky note if I have them. Do I have sticky notes? Maybe I don't. Just so we can all have an idea, actually. Yeah. Sticky notes. Do they stay up above stuff? Yeah, see, Henry's like, yeah, no, don't worry, I'm totally prepared for it. No, I wasn't. I was not prepared. No, actually, I got rid of the search function on my Windows. I'm currently running like a half Windows. Oh no, God. Oh, vom. Anyway, we'll ignore that. I'll just pull it up on the OBS. I'm a Linux user by heart. A Windows user by need. Void Shade 8. I hydrated. It's Coke Zero, there's no sugar. I'll grab a glass of water in a second. But thank you. Okay, let me just add some text. Let's go. You are for these intents and purposes, you're human. Age. Let's just go. Human. Date of birth. DOT, DOB. Let's say 1990. And you come from a different land. But this is essentially the information that we sort of need at the moment, is sort of what you are, what our character, our most basic information, their race, and what year they were born. So this is the basis for starting out a character and sort of looking at stuff and figuring out. So we're going to say that we are born from a regular farming family. So currently in Swordcraft, our year is 2022, the current real life year. The last major thing to happen is Vlad von Karstein, who is from this area in Slovenia. Oh gosh, hang on. Really wish I'd pre-zoomed on this later. So they are from Slovenia. So in this point in history, Slovenia is attacking. They walk all the way up here. They just free pass. They just walk through and they just start kicking the shit out of Midland. There's rumors about some pretty nasty stuff happening with the current war that's happening. And essentially von Karstein, an elect account, I think they're called. An elect account is essentially civil warring within the empire. Slovenia is sort of a separatist state. Think of it sort of like your North Korea-ish. But they invite people around and they keep things sort of cordial for the most part until recently. So 2014 to 2015, there's a year-long siege in Middenheim. All that you would know as a person hearing word of mouth, Middenheim's being sieged. Peasants and infantry, your everyday farm boys, if they haven't been recruited, they're going to be fleeing. They're going to be fleeing into the surrounding borders, probably fleeing into the Reich, or because I actually think he goes through Ostermark, through the Hock, and into Midland, like this, not straight. I think he actually goes around. So, and then attacks like around here. So they will be fleeing down into Reichland and down into Whistland and Avalon. So you would know about this war. This is information that, so the principle and the basis for all this is being built off is turning factual lore into rumors, into stuff that you haven't experienced. Okay? So unless you're from there, unless your backstory is you're from there and you fled, you would only hear about it. Currently in the Empire, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's quite a lot of stuff. Literally 20 years ago, a comet hit the Earth, destroyed Mordheim. That's as far as you would know. Okay, so Mordheim's a really big event. A lot of people know about Mordheim, and a lot of people know that Skaven have taken over Mordheim. The comet was essentially heralded as a twin tail comet sort of thing, and it hit and like almost perceived as like a second, like a sign from Sigmar sort of deal. Hits Mordheim, which is sort of like the jewel of Ostermark, and just fucks the city. The city was massive. Lots of people die. Skaven make it like a base of fucking operations, essentially. And it sort of starts kicking off this war with Vlad von Karstein, who then 10 years later attacks Ostermark. You would hear that Vlad von Karstein attacks Ostermark and then moves and starts moving his troops towards and into Midland and starting to siege Midland for a year. Okay? So we turn this into a rumor. Ostermark gets blown up. Apparently a comet hit it. Unless you were there, you would just that would be all you know. You would hear rumors, probably at the tavern, that would be it. Okay? We're reducing down the level of knowledge straight off the bat. And I'm going to keep reiterating this point. chatter, Void Shade 08. It's interesting looking at the timeline and everything, especially when my character's age. I choose around 1800 for my character's date of birth. I'm one of the elves. Okay, so elves are interesting, because you have a lot more, you have a lot higher scope. Like you actually, so, like, you know, you would things, and this is the tricky thing when it comes to sources like this. This isn't full. 1d4 Chan, we're just, they're a wealth of fucking knowledge, but they're down at the moment. Their timeline is a lot more detailed. They memed a bit more. It's sketchy on the wording that they use. But anyway, how I primarily look at making characters is I look at how events affect and change cultures in real life. So for elves, things like wars, things like events that would shake a small province or continent would have a longer lasting effect on you, and then would change your culture's behavior. So say, like, let's use, I don't know, I'm not too familiar with elves, but the same principle applies here. So let's use a real life setting. World War One. World War One changed warfare from literally not all that long ago. In the Boer Wars, it was still very much line fighting, with your standard red coating and bang cannons and all that sort of deal. To an extent, you know, Boer Wars was still very much seen as a sign of war, it's good for a man, sort of thing. Whereas World War One came around, and that perception really changed and affected the people who came back and survived, and the widows and all that sort of stuff. A devastating war, you know, on a larger scale, which is essentially what most wars in Warhammer Fantasy are. They're large-scale events that cause devastating effects. So these things ripple through generations. So, you know, if you were born during the tail end of something like that, like some generations are, those things carry over. So we're looking at it like that. So World War One, so Boer War to World War One, things changed a lot, and you then also look at socioeconomic stuff and all that sort of things. But that's way deeper. That's some rabbit hole shit you can do in your own reading. Okay. So here's a good couple of things to remember is that an idea of what era your parents lived in, an idea of what were the events and what stories potentially you may have heard about. So you would have an idea of something happening in the past, but you wouldn't know details unless that was a career, which would be something like that would consume a lot of your sort of younger, like, would consume sort of your younger to early adult life. Let's. Yeah. So this is a funny thing. I'll get to your comment in just a second, Void. This is a funny thing. Things in Warhammer Fantasy have such a longer memory, but it still is sort of to the back of people's minds. So currently, we're in an age of despair. So the setting we're in is 2022. We're in the War of Three. We're in the War of Three Emperors. Last one died. He was poisoned by the I think it was Vlad von Carstein and his men. All you would know is that all people would really know is that suddenly a bunch of nobles died really close together. That's it. In lore, Vlad von Carstein invited a fuck ton of people around and poisoned them. They died. Really important people, including the current emperor, the last current emperor. Um, he then the main church, the cult of the Grand Theogonist, the head of the cult of Sigmar, refuses Margareta of Marienburg's crowning, which then makes everybody go, yo, that's for me, thanks. So a civil war breaks out. The one to take it in the end, I think, is Yorick Kruger, the Midlander. I think he's the fastest to make a claim and a stake to that. So you would hear about that. That's a devastating thing to happen, and that would be something that your parents, as say a villager, a boy, would be hearing the townspeople talk about that, and that's gonna stick in your memory. You're not gonna have an idea of what it's like growing up with the security of a stable monarchy. So that's always something to think about. We'll get to Void Shade's comment. So it would have an impact on your character having lived through such differences. So it would have an impact on your character having lived through such major differences over a longer period of time. Worth considering. Although for the most of my character's life, I was in Ulthuan, the home of the elves, so I would have heard of such things, but not necessarily been involved. Yeah, so this is our current year is a little bit hard when it comes to elves because they only really start showing up more, I think, during this era, because this is of the time of the Voyages of Funbar and all that sort of stuff. We would know about wood elves. That's about it. Don't go in the forest. They hate you. And you'd see a few floating around. Nothing crazy. So yeah, these are the things that you want to think about. You want to think about A, when you were born. B, what your parents' profession was. That means what sort of social status you lived in. Villager, congratulations, you're bottom of the run. If you're a scribe for a cult, congratulations, you're bottom of the run. If you're an orphan, congratulations, you're bottom of the run. If you were born in any period of in any socioeconomic time during within Swordcraft's sort of no big sort of son of a noob sort of thing like guidelines, you are typically going to be middle class at best, at the very best. The only exceptions to those rules are going to be the merchant princes, the merchants themselves who are selling you shit, and their retainers, their retinue. Anybody in level 1 to 3. So these are all groundings to, these are all your tricks to click you back to that idea of is this going to fit and affect within where we currently are and what we're currently doing in the world. This is a bit of a spiggledy mess, but I promise I'm gonna at least connect some lines here and there. So there are going to be things that you will never know about, never ever in your lifetime, unless within Swordcraft's quest stories, which is the main ones, or say within Swordcraft's quests, you wouldn't have ideas of. So the common folk would have no idea what the fuck a vampire is. You just wouldn't know. There's no way. Why? Because the Empire is so very, very, very serious about keeping that shit under wraps. Because during the Age of Sigmar, there was a necromancer and he fucked shit up. he fucked a lot of shit up, and shit was fucked up for a very long time. This is some reading that you can do later on, but I have a nice little document here called The Life of Sigmar, which is some nice light reading. I wouldn't suggest reading the whole thing, all the way through, and take note as well when you are looking at. This is another aside. This is going to be full of asides, everyone, and tangents. Take note of a few things. A lot of the times, Warhammer Fantasy stuff will be dated on what the characters when the character is writing this. If you're Peacock Warrior, I'm gonna get back to you on that one in just 2 seconds. So this book here, The Life of Sigmar, is an in-universe book. It's an in-universe text. But if we look here, the Prince's Introduction in 2231, this book doesn't exist. Straight away, this book doesn't exist. Can we draw information from this book? Yes, we certainly can. Why? Because the cults are very much something that is ever present. Cult of Ulrich, Cult of Sigmar, Cult of Tal, they're around. They are all doing their things. Don't think of Warhammer Fantasy's religion as monotheistic. Monotheistic? One. As Sigmar being the one, and that's it. Sigmar's guys are just the most enthusiastic. That's really it. Yeah, so, yeah. If my character's backstory, they lived in Slovenia, would I know about vamps? Yes and no. Slovenia is definitely some further reading that I would highly suggest having a look at. You would specifically have to look up Warhammer Fantasy Old World, because Games Workshop is being dicks about it, but anyway. Stuff. So, Slovenia is a separatist state. They are neutral for the most part. Stuff in Slovenia is closed off. Not many people know anything about it. The only things that people will know, and now this is my favorite map that everybody should be using. Here's some of the maps that I'm currently using in this for everybody's following along. So, and again, this resource here has been dated 2522. So let's go over this Slovenia idea, okay? So if you are from Slovenia, there are some things that you really need to know. A, your life is shit. You are having a real bad time there. Things have been bad for a long time. Everyone who is alive is trying to escape. The von Carsteins, they are really oppressive, and they are every bad and sort of terrible Eastern European, like cannibalistic, blood-bathing vampire mythos in real history is essentially that times 50. Everybody wants to get the fuck out of Slovenia if you're there. You probably wouldn't have lived. You probably would have been smuggled out as an early age in Slovenia, unless you're a part of a couple of groups. And those groups are typically factions where they will be fighting back against the von Carsteins, hitting one guerrilla stuff, and they live for and they do their stuff for quite a long time. Yeah, Slovenia is a hard place. You probably wouldn't know about vampires. You would know that a lot of people are scared all the time. A lot of people are trying to flee. The von Carsteins are really, they could kill you. They could wipe out a section of your village at any moment. The people who know about that best, people in Ostermark. The parts of this map is a little bit off. It's not 100% placed right, because Slovenia doesn't control all this. At the moment, it probably does. It probably has annexed a good little section along here. Slovenia, they love to. Yeah, they fuck shit up. They fuck shit up a lot. In this current year. If you're from Ostermark, Tabakland, or anywhere near the Stir or the Moot, which is where the halflings are from, they would know about undead. Realistically, a lot of the vampires outside of Slovenia and outside of the von Carstein lineage, unless stated somewhere else in the lore, is going to be within Slovenia, within the sort of upper groups of Slovenia, or they're going to be thralls. Vampire apprentice bitches, essentially. Essentially vampire bitches. Not quite vampires, but not quite human. Yeah, Slovenia is a real tangent. Yeah. The von Carsteins use a lot of necromancy, so a lot of their battles are fought with undead. Surrounding areas would know about essentially the restless dead. Von Carsteins just raise every fucking grave they come across. Bunch of dead on the battlefield, yeah, up they get, sort of deal. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind as well. Battles and the details of battles are stuff that is really hard to source in writing. A lot of good content creators on YouTube will do stuff that will put into details as well about what types of fights will happen. The games are really good to have an idea about things like that, like your Total War stuff, like is where this map is. Yeah. Essentially, if you're from Slovenia, you would be smuggled out at a young age, really lucky enough to escape, or a fleeing group of peoples from the surrounding areas. A lot of Ostermark, this whole section down here in Ostermark, all along this sort of border bit, is all sort of referred to as like, I think that's like the Bleak Moors, the Deadwoods. Yeah, the Deadwoods is where a lot of the undead that attack Ostermark and all that sort of stuff. So, my character, being from Ostermark, would know about undead, would know about the attacks that undead cause, a real hate for the undead if you come from those lower areas of Ostermark. Yeah, which then brings me into research your province, your birth province. So, our character that we've got up on the side here, they were born in 1990. So, they would have generational knowledge from things you could probably say 1946 till their birth would be generational stuff that their parents would still occasionally talk about if they are in a comfortable living situation, or in a safe township. Those are stories that we'd passed around from your betters, your elders, the people older than you, the generation before you, the parental generation before you. You would hear about these things. And we have to be very specific about details we pull. So, here, let me... Can I zoom in? How do I zoom in? Here we go. Oh, that's much nicer. We can see shit now. Haha. Things like... so, your parents will probably tell you about a great battle that the Empire has fought. You know, a keep falls to the Empire after 20 long years of siege. their grandfathers fought in that war, blah blah blah, sort of deal. You probably wouldn't know what keep it was. You're probably a little vague on those details. Maybe, maybe not. That's a question mark when it comes to knowledge. The maybe well, like Harkon and the Blood Dragons, you probably hear about the Blood Dragons. They are sort of like your, that will be sort of like the overall name for the army. So like for that group of people. So like World War II. The Yanks. That's still generationally known. So, it's like maybe oh, blood drain sort of stuff. Is this knowledge important to your character? No. No. But if somebody pops at somebody else, yeah, cool. Awesome. Vague ideas. Vague ideas in this area. This era, this is a big enough incident. This is a big enough thing for you to know about. You should know about the living essentially without emperors, with civil war in all throughout parts of the empire. Every part of the empire is in shit, and it gets worse. This here, anything outside of the empire, unless you're Bretonnian, you shouldn't know. You shouldn't know. Or Elf. If your race, or if your faction race isn't imperial, you shouldn't know outside of the empire. If you're a common everyday bloke, you should know. Could you hear about this information from hearing the chatter amongst the merchant princes or in the sword? If you lived in a big city, you've probably potentially heard about something. Cathkay, you wouldn't really know much about Cathkay in universe. No international Murdoch media, exactly. No international Murdoch media. You don't get any of that. Yes, that's nothing. That is the stuff for people that are your betters. You really got to think about these things like like you are in a position of peasantry in real medieval times. And of course, we really have no real proper frame to say this is 100% what people in that era would know, but we have a decent idea. The affairs of state, typically, the only time a peasant would give a shit about that is who's fighting who, and are they fighting. These are. I probably should have prefaced all this. These are things that we are broad stroking, just miles broad stroking. The finer details of your character is entirely up to you, but these are things that we are sort of really wanting to set a general expectation of pre-existing knowledge. This is going to be the longest segment. Is understanding how to pick and choose your pre-existing knowledge, how to cherry pick the details so that they are then become rumorized, so they are basic. Anything international, you really shouldn't know about. Really none of your business. Things like massive world shaking events, like a comet hitting somewhere, if you are living, Middenland, or even Nordland. If you're living Nordland, and then suddenly a comet hits Ostermark, you probably hear about that a year later. Maybe 6 months later. So a lot of people are walking in either gone by horse. But you'd hear about that. That, everybody knows about. Everybody will know about being wiped off the face of the planet. That's it. Details? Big boom, that's it. Empire keeps things under wraps as well. So there's things that this is like layers on layers and layers on layers and layers. You've got pre-existing knowledge, cherry picking, how to turning that basic shit into a rumor. Then that next one is where you are currently, the massive events. What level of knowledge would you know? Okay, so Mordheim, you would know that Mordheim is gone. Don't go there, it's bad. Big boom. Apparently a comet hit it. Well, that's what this bloke down the road told me at the tavern. Devastating thing that happened there. See, that's how that is then naturally sort of rumorized. I heard it from somebody. That's this layer. Second layer, layer number 2. Layer number 3. Would you, in your socioeconomic class, have heard about this through the rumor mill, through the grapevine, or through the affairs of state? If you are not someone who is meant to be in the affairs of state, none of your business. You probably wouldn't know about it. You may have heard something going on, but not quite sure. I heard there was maybe something going on in Midland. Yeah, I mean, we are in the Border Princes, which is down here. But yeah, you know, I've been living in the Border Princes. I've been exiled in the Border Princes since 2015. 2013. You know, I've heard some rumblings about that. I wonder how Sylvania's going. Yeah, they seem to have been on the move. Peculiar. Shame what happened in Mordheim. I heard it was a beautiful city. See, those are your layers. These are how you can naturally ground your character's knowledge. Is conversational stuff just with yourself. Socioeconomic. That's your 3rd layer. Your 4th layer is, if this involves something that really is like a ruinous power, like chaos, or supernatural entities like demons, or vampires, or stuff that is almost an Avengers level threat, or just below an Avengers level threat, you wouldn't know about it at all. At fucking all. There's no fucking way you'd know about it. End of story. Caveat. Little asterisks there. Witch Hunter. You'll know about these things. You keep that shit to your chest. If you're a warrior priest, you have a vague idea about this shit. You have an inkling of some things. You've probably rumors. All rumors, that's right. An inkling about these things. You have an idea that heretics are praying to some dark deity. To what? Don't know. They just smeared a lot of blood everywhere, and they are stabby. Oh, really? They're a bunch of corn cultists. You as a regular Joe don't know that. You're gonna tell that to the warrior priest. You're gonna tell that to your local witch hunter and be like, look, mate, I saw some really fucking shit going on down there. I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but that don't look natural. You guys need to check that out, please. And that's the job of those people. Those people would know what to look for and what those signs are. Those are the only people that should know about those high entity Avengers level threat sort of shit. Which is a good reminder for when we are creating quests. This is something that I was thinking about when creating my quest. My brother-in-law, he had this. Sorry. I'll wait. I'll wait on that one. That one can wait. That's. I'll come back to that. Layer 4. Nothing should go above layer 4, unless you are the nobility, the runners, the leaders, the makers of the towns, the people, the holders of the coin. You shouldn't know about anything of that. Even the holders of the coin sometimes shouldn't even know about that. The next layer up is if it's Skaven, you don't know what it is. If it's furry, you're presuming it's a fucking giant. You're presuming it's a weird fucking cow thing from the woods. Don't go near it. It's not yours. Skaven, you have no idea of. Sorry, you shouldn't know about Skaven. Unless you're of the people that should be dealing with those things, alright? Shouldn't know about that stuff. Those are stuff that the Empire is actively suppressing. Beastmen would be the most supernatural thing you would know, aside from the undead. Exactly. There's me and my 2IC, Eric, we sort of came up with this little sort of thought, is that the two roles of these people, the church is one hand, and the witch hunters is the other hand of the Empire. They are the two primary tools of the Empire for controlling and suppressing panic within the Empire. The church is to give people hope and prosperity. They are the light that fills people's days. Doesn't matter what cult that is. If it's part of the main human pantheon, doesn't matter. And that's another thing. We're not monotheocratic. Sigmarites, and again, Sigmarites are just the most enthusiastic. Because their god was man. And I've got resources here that I can go into that in the religion section of this. The witch hunters, they're the ones that are in the shadow, and they are the ones that make sure the shadows don't move when they're not meant to. Yeah. Sigmar is the best book. The buildiest book. Sigma. Yeah, anyway. So those are sort of things to keep in mind as well. If you are not in those roles, even if you have connection to those roles, if you are not specifically in those roles, those are things that you should know. Even nobles, even the people who are running the country would kind of know about those things. So. Swordcraft is Warhammer inspired. We are twisting and bending these rules a little bit. Doesn't mean you can't use the absence of knowledge to make the events and stuff that happens interesting in this setting. So we've gone over a little bit, and it's quite a bit to take in. So that's sort of the first part of how much knowledge do we know? How much knowledge should we be cherry picking out of these things? We should be simplifying that knowledge to a 2 beers deep barstool conversation, and then what your socioeconomic class grants you to see into that. If you go, you know what though, I may be a potato peasant, but Jim from down the road told me about this thing, about these Skaven. No, he didn't. Jim from down the road isn't a potato person. Don't think like that. That's a bad way to think when it comes to RP. Jim down the road at a quest was to tell you that? Cool shit. Put up your antlers. How did you find out about that information? Would you really know about that information? Yeah or no? That's something that you can do in the moment. You can have a little bit of fun with. Or if Jim from down the road told you that at the pub, and he's like, "Oh yeah, have you heard about Skaven?" You can be like, "What the fuck is Skaven, mate?" And play into it with disbelief. And then Witch Hunter. Exactly. It was this big, and it took me 2 hours to reel it in. Really? You're telling me that That flathead right there, that's about the size of my hand, took you 2 hours to reel in, mate. No, that's the bait. You sure about that, Jim? Let me ask the marine biologist here. Does that support this? And your marine biologist would be a priest or a witch hunter. And you wouldn't see Jim again. That's the idea that we're working with. These are fun things. These are meant to be fun. We're in a very serious, dark fantasy. Everything is grim and shit. It's like Ireland during the potato famine. It's really shit and sad. Everybody's dying. So you've got to find and make your own fun. Bad analogies aside, now we can look at where we are in the world of Warhammer. The Empire consists of... nope. Okay. The Empire consists of essentially this. Actually, it's probably more like this. So Reichland, Middenland, Nordland, Ostland, Hochland, Ostermark, Tabakland, Sturland, Avonland, Solland, Wissenland, Slovenia, and that's it. That is the Empire. With a caveat. We've got the little border princes down here. I'm pointing at the screen, you can't see it. Oh, and the moon. I always forget the moon. They're just so happy there. Even though they're very close to Slovenia. We're all the way down here. Oh, look. What's this? We're going through this pass here. Why are we going down here? Why are we going to the Border Princes? Border Princes is a very bad place. Border Princes is where a lot of people get exiled. A lot of people die. This is your dry-ass, fucking stony, really just trash land. Hard to grow, hard to farm, hard for crops. The Border Princes are essentially their own microcosm. They are the Empire just on crack. Not crack as in like, yeah, wow, everything's 50% more. No, crack as in like, mate, I've got bugs under my skin and they're biting me balls. You want? Can you sell me some more, please? I'll do anything for another hit. That sort of crack. The Border Princes have people, merchant princes, vying for power all the time. They are the first defense, shall we say, from the orcs and the goblins down in this area. From Death Pass to the Badlands. All the nasty shit, all the orcs, the Battle of Blackfire Pass, it's around about this area here, I think, off the top of my head. Or around this zone, somewhere along here, Blackfire Pass, I should know. But all the bad shit goes through us first. We get hit with it first. We get hit with the ogres, we get hit with the orcs. If you're a peasant, you definitely know what an orc is. It's about 6 foot tall, 7 foot tall. It likes to rip and tear, and it screams, and it seems like he has a lot of fun killing your neighbor Jim. You know what orcs are. We know what orcs are. Orcs are something we know. Ogres? Yeah, nah. You would have heard... We, in this area, in the Border Princes, would have heard about them. If you're say, a new, sort of in the past 10, 15 years to the Border Princes, maybe not. You might not have heard about ogres. You might have heard whispers of an even taller, different coloured, essentially sounds like an orc. People say they're bigger. Yeah, that's probably what you know. Where we currently are situated in Swordcraft is orc mercs. Yeah, you would hear about giant, big ass dudes. Sounds like big orc man, but kind of not orc. But also they will take money. So would your character know much about ogres? No. My character is so. My personal character is a it's from Ostermark, and was a part of a big pilgrimage sort of thing, and I mapped out all that sort of stuff and things like that. A part of a cult of Sigmar, which ties into our warband and everything like that. I have no idea what an ogre is. Orcs, on the other hand, fucking love punching them. That's the sort of thing that sounds great, awesome, great way to die. Undead, fucking hate them. If you're from Ostermark, you know about them, you hate them. You kind of have a bad taste in your mouth from the blokes of Slovenia. You would spit on Slovenia. You would probably murder a Slovenia more than you would a Kislevite from Ostermark. There's a love-hate relationship between Ostermark and Kislevites. Um. Anyway, another aside. Um, the area that we're in is in the Border Princes. This is all the bad shit in the Empire on crack, on bugs under your skin crack. Which is where this map comes in. I really love this map. Links are in the chat again and in the description below and all that shit. So you remember how we had that pass? This pass along here is going to be sort of a main pilgrimage area. A lot of people will be put through it. If they are of a Sigmarite sort of descent. This is sort of almost a rite of passage for Sigmarites to be able to go. It's like a great honor to. But coming to the Border Princes, you sort of, this is your only way in and out. So it's a road less traveled, if that makes sense. It's dangerous. It's probably not as dangerous as the other ways to get to the Border Princes. So I'm wondering what would have been your general reaction from the recent in-character town hall meeting. So when we unveiled the Ogre's Hammer, I guess generally yous wouldn't have recognized it. Personally, myself, I saw it and I thought, ogres. Nah, I don't think I've ever heard or encountered them in my life. Okay, what the fuck is that? Why is there a big hammer? What the fuck is gut magic? So it's just big orc, yeah? It's not, but it is. But you can buy them. Why would we buy something like that? That's essentially the go. And you know, you could argue there's a little bit of meta in there, and yeah, probably is a little bit of meta in there. You know, you've the main thing that you want to be doing as you're essentially playing improv, which is essentially what LARP is, this long form improv, is that you want to be making quick, logical decisions that are going to best relate back to you. So, when the in-character town meeting happened and they unveiled the hammer, I was like, nice hammer. Then I saw the symbol in it and I was like, maybe not. So that's those are things that you probably, when you're in character, is that you want to be thinking with pre-existing knowledge. You want to be working with the knowledge that you are being given and shading that knowledge with character, with your pre-existing character knowledge. If somebody came up to me and said, we have a problem with the graveyard, I would be in full armor at the graveyard going, what the fuck's the issue? Do I need to burn it? Because I feel like I need to burn the graveyard. Sort of thing. Yeah. Not every character is going to be the same. Not every warband character is going to be the same. If they are a very regiment, so let's say if you are a warband that is all from the same area, you were ex-military warband, your warband say fled and or were told to go to the Border Princess, or you were chasing a group of somethings, whatever, and somehow ended up in the Border Princess. None of those soldiers are going to be the same person. Their experiences are going to be different. They're going to be shared, but they're not going to be the same. If you are all, say, from land, say, like Ulthuan, which isn't on this map, but we'll pretend. Elfland. If you're all from Elfland, if you're a group that travelled from Ulthuan, you are going to be... You are going to be similar. You're going to have potentially shared experiences, shared knowledge of Ulthuan, but that knowledge would change determined on what your reason for being over here is. What led you to be over in the Border Princes? Elves in the Border Princes? In this year? In this climate? My God. It must be pretty important, eh? Oh. Elves, and this is another thing to think about as well. Unless you're a dwarf, elves in this economy, elves in this day and age are sort of something that humans would hear about. They probably might have seen one. They probably would have stopped and been like, holy fuck, is that an elf? No, Jim, it's oh, you're telling me it's an elf. Oh, it's an elf. Whoa. That's cool. G'day, mate. How you going? And the elf will be like, what? What? Have you never seen my kind before, stranger? Sort of thing, you know what I mean? Yes and no. You're not going to stand on ceremony for everyone to come. If yeah, 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 it would be an interesting curiosity coming into town. If you didn't have one, if you didn't own an elf, I got my elf at Costco. No, if you didn't have an elf living in your town around you, it would be an interesting curiosity of the day. What is this Monkai doing? Have you never seen one of us before? My God, sir. Yeah. So it would be interesting. And dwarves that same rule wouldn't apply to dwarves. Dwarves are in typically most cities as sort of cohabitative relationship. Dwarves manufacture essentially all the firearms in the Empire. All of them. Humans, of course, manufacture firearms, just not to the same grade that dwarves do. Dwarves made black powder, and my God, is that cracked the Empire. Dwarves are more seen as hot tip: do not shave dwarves' beard. Doesn't go well. I just wouldn't touch a dwarves' beard in the first place. The dwarves, they're not seen as a lower class. They're seen as a... Realistically, Warhammer's actually funny. It's not that racist. Really isn't. Nice condiment. There are elven runes in the Empire, usually avoided because alien architecture and latent magic wards. Yeah. We'll go back to elves. Elves are sort of a mystery. They're something where people would be like, whoa, damn, man, elves, that's cool. But, like, maybe we'll be on edge a little. You know, this era is a very paranoid era. There was a long time ago, there was a wizard war that still has left scars on the people of the Empire, and that is still a thing. It's not race that people are prejudiced against. It is occupation. If you're a mage, you're maybe gonna get a... Oh, so what type of mage are you? A lot of the time, people from the Empire don't sort of... It's layered and it's faceted. We don't have colleges yet. The fact that we have a mages guild at all in any of our towns is very progressive. We're in a bad spot down here. So this is the start of the border princes through here. These are the two main settlements that people would probably only go as far. Everything else down this way, yeah, you're dead. This Goblin Forest, big bad area. You would probably go up here and then around to get to those towns. You probably even wouldn't. You probably go to here and that's it. Yeah, nah, I'm good, man. Nah, fuck that. Yeah, don't know if you know, but the Elves and Dwarves War started from an elf shaving a dwarf's emissary beard off. Look, that wouldn't surprise me. See, that wouldn't surprise me. A human would laugh at that story. A dwarf would write the human down in their book of grudges, and the elf would have a little bit of a chortle and go, "Oh, don't take it so badly. Don't take it so badly, darling. Poor baby. Let me try it on you." You know what I mean? Like, somebody's getting shanked that night, and only one's walking out of the bar. So the dwarf's probably going to shank the elf and then the human first. So, anyway, yeah. So it's not. It's about occupation. It's about what sort of prehistory stuff. Dwarves, I think, live a little bit longer than humans. They coexist in human cities. They are predominantly going to be doing things within those human cities that help improve the quality of life of those human cities incidentally. So a gun in the Warhammer Fantasy universe is like having a latrine. Or not a latrine, more like a toilet that flushes. It's like soap in the Warhammer universe, a gun. So, yeah, they're going to be producing things and making things better for people out of just sheer. We both live here. We might as well try and not make it as shit. And these are the twists that Swordcraft does to make their setting accessible. Okay. So again, it's been a while, so I'm going to broad stroke again. These are broad strokes. These are things that we are applying to help twist Swordcraft's setting to the Warhammer Fantasy setting to Swordcraft as a LARP. We are reducing our scope down. We are thinking about context, pre-existing context, and socioeconomic status, and how that shades our pre-existing knowledge, and how our pre-existing knowledge shades the information currently being given to us. This is going to be a ramble in the VOD, I can just say it. I'm not going to edit it anyway. So, Border Princes, typically, this is the main area of the Border Princes. This is where most of the stuff is going to happen, most of things are. We're not there. If we scroll down here, so, Whistleland, Averland, main sort of way to come through, another sort of safe-ish way to come through. Yeah, I say safe-ish in the Warhammer Fantasy universe. So if you scroll down here, we go down here, that's the river, I can't read that one. We've got the Skull River, which leads from the Blood River. Yeah, the Blood River spikes off into the actual Blood River down here. And then Swordcraft actually is set here, in this section right here, just in this little nice little bit right here. Can't zoom in any further, so this section here. Kriegster, I think, is in like either around this section bit here. So I think Sudenburg's up. I think Iron Triangle's down here, and I think think the others are scattered along this way. So yeah, I think Kriegstor's around here. So the Ballarat chapter's down around here. So let's take in our surroundings. Across the Blood River, we have the savage Broken Tooth Orc tribe. They're probably a bit busy fighting each other. So Sudenburg's up to the left, I believe. Up and like this way, you reckon? Like here-ish, or like here? I think that's probably right. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. So taking our surroundings. And remember, this map is a quite a bit 530 something years ahead of where our current setting is. Orcs were essentially pioneers out in the middle of nowhere. Essentially, the fact that we made it this far into the Border Princes at this year, in this economy, fucking astounding. Our town has been stomped a couple of times before. We're currently living in some ruins. That's why half of our wall at Kriegstor is gone. But the people of the Empire and the races of the Warhammer Fantasy Universe are hardy people. We try to make the best of things. So, now that we know where we are, let's zoom out and take in our scope. So, we've got the Empire, Elfland, some Wood Elf land, I think, with Bretonia mixed in along here. We've got the Chaos Wastes, where a lot of Norsca, where is Norsca? They're all your Norskans, your Chaos Warriors. They're the nasty Viking people. You've got Albion, which is like Scotland pickish sort of deal. The fact that they can come over, the fact that we've got a few of those down this far, they're well traveled. So, again, the fact that we're zooming out and looking at where we're coming from and looking sort of what distances we have to travel and what things would be coming to here, we've got to then do the same thing as we do with our character knowledge. So this is why the ramble at the start had to happen. The shades of our pre-existing knowledge have to then make sense and apply to the context of where we are in the current world. You can't reasonably have things that are threats the Empire are dealing with. So, things like, and these, of course, broad strokes, Avengers level threat stuff. These are like, an orc army coming out of nowhere, just starting to smash into the Empire. That's when Swordcraft ends. Straight up, nobody lives from that. We do not have the... Because I think the way Swordcraft runs it, and I'm fairly certain, I think I know who Voidshade is, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way Swordcraft runs is your player pop, your weekly player pop is your town's... That's your town's numbers. That's how much population you have. So Kriegstor, around about 120. You round either side. Whereas, say, somewhere in the Empire, even down close to the Border Princes, like that's a biggish town. It's probably a population of 1,000, maybe 2,000, maybe a little bit more, somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000. That's a fairly decent population. Kriegstor is a hamlet somebody forgot The fact that Kriegstore is sort of a special case for us because the way we run our game, and each chapter will run their game different, which changes a few things. So they've got to be able to play a game and RP in a realistic sense and still provide those things. If you have, say, a chapter of 30 or 50, not much is going to get done in a village of that size. Stuff will get done, but you're more of a couple of houses in a paddock when you're that size. So there are concessions. There would be concessions made, and that would be, and this is me spitballing, that would be per chapter, based on per chapter. I'm not too sure of other chapters' numbers outside of Ballarat and, of course, Melbourne. So our scope and the things that constantly attack us, which is why a lot of our sagas turns, which is our stories that happen week to week, for those watching at home, are primarily going to be goblins. They're going to be goblins that are attacking us. And the fact that we had some orcs, I'm just readjusting this. Hi guys. The fact that we had a small party of orcs, and that's key, a small party of orcs snooping around, that is like shit your pants. Like, where there's one, there's gonna be more. And more is bad. Goblins, they're bad. Where there's one, there's more. They're kind of small enough that if you set something on fire with them in it, you're probably wiped out. They're just as ferocious as orcs, but they just sort of don't have the same stature that an orc and destruction that an orc could bring within the same context of how you're facing them. So we are looking at where we are, the context of what we know, how that shades what information we're being given, and how that setting is then being brought over, and what realistically we would have in a hamlet like Kriegstore. Which is not a lot, but there's things that we can do, and there's things that we can have fun and make with. So I'm going to do probably something that is going to let me pull this over here for a tick. I'm going to do something that I was umming and ahhing about, but I will show it for the